Hello everyone. I'm Virgile Perret, project leader for the Observatoire de la Finance based in Geneva, where I have the pleasure to manage the Global Prize in Ethics and Trust in Finance. And it's always a great pleasure to speak with laureates of this prize. Now we just completed the 10th edition, which was running between 2024 and 2025. And I have with me today Paul Forrester from the United States. And he won the first prize ex aequo of this 10th edition of the competition. Paul Forrester wrote a very interesting paper on an important issue, namely on emissions rights and environmental justice. So let me ask him a few questions on his essay. The first one, Paul, what motivated you to write this essay and focus on the issue of emission rights and environmental justice?
Well, I've been interested in this topic for a long time. In graduate school, I wrote my dissertation on distributive justice and natural resources, but I didn't think very much about climate change and rights to emit carbon dioxide in particular in that thesis. So it's sort of a natural thing for me to think about next. And I was sort of struck by the bifurcation in people's views on this topic. So many people think that uh, countries in the global south should get more than an equal per capita amount of emissions because they haven't emitted as much historically. And while global north countries should get less because they have emitted more historically. But then other people think that since countries in the global north have been using fossil fuels for a longer period of time, that gives them a continued entitlement to emit as much as they have historically, an entitlement that's lacked by countries in the global south. So you can sort of see how that perspective corresponds to Locke's idea that if you mix your labor with a resource, you get an entitlement to the resource. Now, I rejected Locke's theoretical view in my dissertation. And what I did in this paper was I chose exactly the middle ground between these two views. So my view is that everyone in the entire world should get the same amount of emissions, regardless of the historical emissions of their countries. And that sort of reflects our equal entitlement to use natural resources.
Thanks for these insights. Second question, why does climate change raise questions of fairness and distributive justice?
Well, climate change is one of the most important issues that humanity will face in the 21st century. It's going to cause massive disruptions to um, places where many people live, established business models, and ways of life. So, um, the fact that climate change is being caused right now by people who are alive and has been caused by people in the past through historical emissions complicates the normative landscape a lot, I think. Um, so the main question I see for fairness and distributive justice is how do we assign rights to use natural resources to members of each generation? How can we um, say whether a certain generation has used too many of Earth's non-renewable resources, and how much should we save for future generations? So uh, I think the most interesting uh, question about fairness and distributive justice concerning climate change is uh, regards how do we treat future generations and how do we reconcile um, things that have been done in the past.
Right. Thank you. Very interesting. And so, what could international institutions do to encourage greater distributive justice with respect to climate change?
I think international institutions have an important role, um, uh, especially with regard to resources that are in the so-called global commons, that is, areas of the earth that are not under the jurisdiction of any individual country. The atmosphere is obviously one of those. Another is the oceans and the seafloor. An example that I'm particularly encouraged by that I think is promising is the International Seabed Authority and the prospects for deep sea mining for mineral resources that can accelerate the energy transition. These are resources that are used in batteries for electric vehicles and other types of green technologies. And what that institution has done is it's paired up developed countries and developing countries uh, to jointly explore and to develop these resources. So I think that when we are dealing with resources that are in the global commons, be it in the air or the sea, or in outer space for that matter, I think that all countries should have an equal say at the table, an equal per capita say, that is.
Right. Thank you. Finally, one more personal questions. And how important has ethics been in the choices you made in your personal career?
Well, I'd say it's very important because I went to graduate school and studied ethics and wrote my dissertation and other papers in theoretical ethics. And now I'm a business ethics professor at the Wharton School. So I think it's central to what I'm doing both in my research and teaching as a professor.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Paul, for these insights, and congratulations again for your award for this prize.
Thank you.